Welcome to HoodBanker Tales. This is your boy HoodBanker. Today's tale is going to be centered around MK Ultra. Let's crack this vault open. Take a look.
To understand MKUltra, you have to go back to the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a global struggle. American intelligence officials feared that America's enemies were developing techniques involving interrogation, psychological manipulation, and what was commonly described at the time as brainwashing. The CIA wanted answers. Could drugs alter human behavior? Could interrogation techniques break down resistance? Could a person's memory or decisions be manipulated? Those questions helped lead to a series of secret research programs and eventually MKUltra. MKUltra was formally established in the early 1950s, but it wasn't one single experiment. It was a collection of research projects investigating behavioral modification, drugs, interrogation techniques, and other psychological methods. Much of what we know today came from documents that were eventually declassified and from congressional investigations. But there was a major problem. Many of the original records were destroyed. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of MKUltra records. For years, investigators believed that much of the program's documentary history had disappeared. Then, in 1977, something unexpected happened. CIA employees, searching for records connected to a Freedom of Information Act request, discovered 7 boxes of financial documents that had survived. Those records contained information about 149 MKUltra sub-projects. Suddenly, one of the most secretive programs in American intelligence history had left behind a paper trail, and Congress wanted answers. One of the substances most closely associated with MKUltra was LSD. The CIA wanted to understand what the drug could do to perception and behavior. Researchers investigated whether drugs could potentially be used during interrogation or clandestine operations. But some experiments crossed a major ethical line. Some people were given drugs without knowing what they had been given. They weren't informed, they couldn't consent, and they didn't know they were participating in an experiment. Part of the story isn't simply an internet rumor, it became part of the historical record. Then there is the case of Frank Olson. Olson was a U.S. Army scientist who worked with the CIA. In 1953, he was secretly given LSD during a meeting. Days later, Olson fell from a hotel window in New York City and died. His death became the subject of decades of controversy. Was it suicide? Was something else happening? Could his classified work have played a role? Those questions have never completely disappeared, and because so many MKUltra records had already been destroyed, investigators were left with an incomplete picture. By the 1970s, America's intelligence agencies were facing growing scrutiny. Congressional investigations began examining allegations of intelligence abuses. And in 1977, the Senate held a hearing specifically examining MKUltra and CIA research into behavioral modification. The surviving documents showed that the program had been far more extensive than many people realized. There wasn't one laboratory. There wasn't one experiment. There were numerous sub-projects involving different researchers, institutions, and methods. The question was no longer whether MKUltra existed. The question was, how far did it go? And this is where we need to separate documented history from conspiracy theory. MKUltra became the foundation for much larger claims. Some people have claimed that the CIA developed complete mind control technology. Others have connected MKUltra to assassinations, political crimes, and mysterious deaths. But those claims don't all have the same level of evidence. The documented program was real. The drug experiments were real. The destruction of records was real. The congressional investigation was real. But that doesn't automatically prove every theory that came afterward, and that's an important distinction. Because the original records were destroyed, we don't have a complete picture of MKUltra. We know that surviving records described numerous research projects. We know that some people were exposed to experiments without informed consent. And we know that investigators later recovered documents that had escaped the original destruction. But what was contained in the records that disappeared? That's something we may never know, and this is where the mystery surrounding MKUltra becomes so powerful. The missing evidence creates unanswered questions, but unanswered questions are not automatically proof of a conspiracy. MKUltra left behind a much larger question about government secrecy. What happens when an intelligence agency believes national security is important enough to operate outside normal boundaries? And who watches the people who are supposed to be watching everyone else? Today, the phrase mind control is often used casually, but the historical lesson of MKUltra isn't necessarily that the government discovered a magical machine capable of controlling anyone. The documented lesson is more disturbing. Powerful institutions can conduct secret experiments, people can be harmed, records can disappear, and sometimes the truth doesn't emerge until decades later. So what should we actually believe about MKUltra? We should believe what the evidence supports. MKUltra existed. The CIA-funded behavioral research LSD was involved. Some people were exposed without informed consent. Records were destroyed, and Congress investigated what remained. But beyond those facts are questions. How much was destroyed? How many people were affected? And what exactly did the researchers learn? Those questions remain part of the controversy. MKUltra sounds like a conspiracy theory. That's the strange part, because the conspiracy wasn't that the program existed, the program actually existed. What's still difficult to determine is how much of the story disappeared with the records.
Well, what do you think about that? Who knew MKUltra was real deal? You heard it? I heard it. It's there. You just don't know how far this thing actually goes. But I tell you what, you tune in next week, I'll have another HoodBanker Tale for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll holler at y'all later.